Hello class, welcome again. So today we are going to discuss one of the most important topic of this chapter, solid state, that is a packing of crystals. Now we have to aware about that how the particles, the different particles are actually occupied in the cubic unit cell. What type of weights are left behind and how to calculate the dimensions, types of weights, coordination number and the geometry of the weights. You can see on the board behind me there are some structures are formed. So we'll discuss one by one. So let's start the topic. Last two lectures actually concluded some introduction about the unit cell, some types of unit cell, some other features about unit cells like FCC, BCC, SCC. So let's discuss how the particles arranged together. Class, you have to know whenever the sphere occupied together, whenever the sphere contact to each other, there should be some void, some hole, some gap generated among them, in between them. That is called voids. We'll discuss one by one from the one dimensional, two dimensional and three dimensional. It will not be easy to make a picture of three dimensional. So that can be you could be see through your notebook or your NCERT books. There's some three dimensional structures are there. I'm framed here one dimensional. The first picture is about one dimensional. You can see a single row of arrangement of the particles. You can see that in single row the particles are actually directly attached with two different particles. That is called coordination number. So in one dimensional, this is imaginary. Actually the particles always form a 3D structure. So never learn as 1D is a type of structure. This is imaginary how the formation of cubic structure, how the three-dimensional structure leads out. Because when you start from the 1D, 2D, then it's lead to the 3D. So in this structure, you can see the particles are directly attached. That is called coordination number. So in one dimensional, the one center particle attached with two different particles. Then we'll turn to the two dimensional. In two dimensional, there are two different pictures are there. Two different pictures written as AAA type are written here ABAB type. ABAB type. This is the only important thing you have to learn. When the second row arranged, it may be possibly the arrangement of the particles two different types. The one is the second row particle perpendicularly aligned to the first row particle. Second row particle perpendicularly aligned to the first row particle, and so on. That leads to the center particle only contact with or attached with four different particles. Contact with or attached with four different particles. You can see the center particle attached with four particles only. So that is called a square closed structure. In a two-dimensionally, the structure look like a square having a coordination number 4, where center particle attached with four different particles. That is called the first row and second row, third row, and all the rows are look like a same, aligned same. That is called AAA type. All lines are the same perpendicularly alignment. Beside that, there are some other different arrangement of the particles of the second row and third row and so on, in which the first row when arranged, the second row particles actually shifted slightly and put a gap of the two different particles and not perpendicularly aligned. You can see the second row particles take a gap of the first row particles So there are a shifting of the particles from the second row. When we arrange a third row particle, now the third row particles are just look like are perpendicularly aligned like a first one. So every second row are just take a gap and slightly shifted from the first row particle, and perpendicular alignments are omitted. That is called ABAB type, means first row is A, second row is B. Both are different row and not perpendicularly aligned. In this situation, the center particle you can see attached with 6 different particles. The center particle attached with 6 different particles, that is called hexagonal close packing. The structure look like, the frame look as hexagonal in 2-dimensional. Hexagonal in 2-dimensional. So structure is having a 6 coordination number. In this situation, the whites generated among the particles are actually called triangular whites. The whites are like this one. These triangular whites are generated among the particles because the second row, third row, fourth row and so on, the particles are just shifted. So the whites are not like in square close packing, but there is some different whites are generated. You have to study the whites generated in hexagonal close packing also. So look at the whites. The white shape is like a triangular whites. White shape is triangular whites. Coordination number of hexagonal close packing in 2-dimensional is 6. It is very important to learn the different parameters and features about the packing. How the alignments are there, which type of rows are generated, what is the coordination number, which type of whites are formed. All these are the informations about packing. You have to learn and note it down in your notebook also. It is important. So in hexagonal close packing, there is ABAB type, means only 2 different row are there. So this is having a 6 coordination number. Triangular whites are generated. Now in 3D, the square close packing leads to a simple closed unit cell. Simple unit cell, that is called SCC or PCC. The primary unit cell, the primary centered unit cell or a simple unit cell, you already learned about that, the dimensions about. So the square close packing leads to the SCC. Square close packing leads to simple cubic cell. Having coordination number already taught, so you have to put down from there. And hexagonal close packing 2D leads to 2 different arrangement in 3D, and that is important. That is important and some complicated. So you have to be concentrate. A full concentration should be here. So can be grabbed the things whatever putting here, whatever the things are delivered here. Hexagonal close packing in 2-dimensional leads to 2 different structure called hexagonal close packing in 3D. The name are there, name are same, but this is in 2D and this is in 3D, and the one is cubic close packing. Cubic close packing, CCP, name are CCP. So there is both the 3D structures arises from the SCP 2D, but having some different arrangement which actually arises because of the different arrangement of the layers, and I try to be concentrate you on the how the arrangements are there. Look at the arrangements. First, learn this. Hexagonal close packing in 2-dimensional leads to 2 different arrangement called hexagonal close packing 3-dimensionally and cubic close packing 3-dimensionally. Both are three-dimensional structure, and the structure is look like this. HCP are framed here and CCP is in the below structure. Look at the shape. The middle one is the middle. This is a middle structure. Is look like the same. Look, hexagonal close packing, and the upper layer, the next upper layer are having to take a whites of the generated in hexagonal. There is whites are generated now. There are whites are generated. So upper next layer arranged like just take a whites of the first layer or a middle layer, and the same procedure, the same whites are taken by the below layer also. So this is like a one of the sandwich layer, means the center layer or middle layer like a sandwich, and upper layer and the below layer both just take a whites and arranged as look like a similar layer. Means center layer or a middle layer is different, having a 6 coordination number you can see, and upper layer the next layer and below next layer just take a gap of the whites, take the gap, these are the gaps. These gaps are taken by the layer and frame like a different layer, but the upper next and below next having a same arrangement, and that's why written here B and B with the same coordination number, with the same coordination number. This is called ABAB type in 3D and known as hexagonal close packing in 3-dimensional. Hexagonal close packing in 3-dimensional. What you have to learn? You have to learn the center layer having a 6 particle in surrounding, and uppermost layer just take a gap whites, the triangular whites, as just completely cover the whites, and below next layer also take a same whites and perpendicularly aligned with the third layer, perpendicularly aligned with the third layer. So third layer and this layer having a same alignment, so arrangements are same. Total coordination number is 12. Total coordination number of SCP in 3D is 12. This is different. SCP in 2D, the coordination number is 6. SCP in 3D, the coordination number is 12. And next arrangement is really very interesting. You can see the cubic close packing in 3D having a ABC type. Having a ABC type means the first, now this is not a center layer, now this is supposed as a first layer. The hexagonal 2D supposed like a first layer, and the uppermost layer take a same wide as in a SCP. As in a SCP, you can see in SCP and here in CCP, two layers are similar. Two layers are similar. Hexagonal 2D, triangular second layer, triangular second layer. But now the interesting thing is the third layer is not like the second layer. The third layer, there is actually now the third layer just take a whites of the second layer. I repeat it once again because this is become a complicated now. Hexagonal, the first layer suppose as a hexagonal close packing. The center particle surrounded by 6 particles, you can see on the board. Now the whites generated on this layer occupied by the second layer, and whites generated in second layer occupied by the first layer. Have you got it? Have you got? The white occupied by the second layer occupied by the third layer. You can see there is a white, and this white can be surrounded, can be covered by the single particle, and that is the single particle. That is single particle. So it is very easy to learn. First layer, whites occupied by the second layer, and whites occupied by the third layer. So that's why when we see the arrangement, all these three layers become different. All these three layers become different, and that's why this is called ABC type with coordination number same, because these are also having 3 coordination number and 6 coordination number. So total coordination number are the again same 12. Total coordination number are the 12. Total coordination number are the 12. But the arrangements types are AB type and ABC type. That is important. That is important. The 3 different layers are there in CCP, and there are only 2 different layers with the same coordination number. Voids generated in both the structure arrangements are called triangular voids, and triangular voids, now we have to learn how the triangular voids occupied by the different particles and what are the names of these particles. Class, basically I am concluding the things. SCP 2-dimensionally leads to the 3-dimensional SCP and 3-dimensional CCP with a different arrangement of the layers, with the AB layer in SCP 3D and ABC layer in a 3-dimensional CCP with the same coordination number. That is much. That enough to be learned. And now see the voids. Class, voids SCP and CCP. We are here dealing the voids in SCP and CCP only. SCP and CCP only, because this void is a different void which is not in your syllabus actually. So we have to learn the voids in SCP only and CCP. Voids in SCP and CCP, the total voids written here 3n. Sorry. If the n number is the number of particles, suppose if n is the number of particles, per unit cell, the total voids generated is 3n. The total voids generated is called 3n, in which 2n is a tetrahedral voids and 1n is a octahedral voids. Means tetrahedral voids are the just double in the number of octahedral voids. What is meaning here tetrahedral voids? Actually, the voids, the triangular voids left in a 2-dimensional occupied by the 2 different manner. The one manner is the triangular void completely covered by the second layer particle. The triangular voids here, completely covered by the second layer particle. So the triangular means the voids contact with 3 particles and now covered by the fourth particle in a second layer. So having a coordination number 4 called tetrahedral voids. Repeat again. I'm repeating. Listen one more time. Tetrahedral voids means the triangular voids in 2-dimensional completely covered by the particles in the next layer and called tetrahedral voids. Like it here. And in octahedral, the voids are not completely covered by the second layer particle. You can see on the board. In tetrahedral voids, the second layer particle completely covered the void called tetrahedral void, but in octahedral, the void is not covered by the particle. Even there, the 3 other particles leave some more space there and arranged or occupied like there is a space still left there. That is octahedral voids. The 3 particles in the first row not completely covered by the particle of the second row and still leave some holes, some gap. In this case, the holes are gap, or you can say a void, surrounded by 6 particles. So coordination number called 6. The coordination number called 6. So this is 2 different types of arrangement in the voids in this structure, in this arrangement. Always there are either tetrahedral voids are formed or octahedral voids are formed. We have to learn where these voids are actually located, means location of the voids in cubic structure. Location of the voids in cubic structure. Class, location of the voids, you can see actually the coordination number 4 means tetrahedral voids actually located 2 voids per body diagonal. In a cubic structure, there are 4 body diagonals. In cubic structure, there are 4 body diagonals and tetrahedral voids located 2 voids per body diagonal. So number will become 8. Number will become 8. So tetrahedral voids location is 2 at each body diagonal. 2 at each body diagonal, where octahedral voids actually located in the 1 at each edge center, 1 at each edge center, and 1 in body, 1 in a body center, 1 at each edge center and 1 in body center. So edge center means actually we already learned about that. The participation value of edge center is 1 by 4. Remember, 1 by 4. There are total 12 edges. So 1 by 4 into 12 called 3. 3. So total number of voids of octahedrals are 3 only. And 1 in a body center. So total become 4. And tetrahedral was become 8 because of the body diagonal. So these are the locations of the voids. Class, from this lecture, you have to learn whatever the things are written on the board. Whatever the things are written on the board, just take a screenshot. Just take a screenshot of the board and note it down all the things given here board. That is only important for your competitions for your board. Whatever the things are written here, if there is any problem, any doubt regarding the packing, you can message me in a comment box, so I can solve your doubt through your comment. Okay, thank you. We'll meet in the next lecture with a density, one of the important numerical based on the solid state. What is the density of unit cell? How to calculate density? That is the only numerical portion of this chapter, and with some formula making question. How to make a formula for a unit cell. Because now we are able to learn some other topic, how to make a formula of a unit cell. But first learn the packing of the crystal, one of the key basic point of the chapter. Okay, thank you. I am leaving the screen. Just take a screenshot. Okay, fine. So meet in the next lecture.